What is the bliss of unknowing? It's understanding the difference between facts and theories. Facts are on the spot, in your face, undeniable. Even if they're facts we don't particularly like, there's always something grounding about them, just like plugging in your headphones to get better sound on the recording. So even if they're facts we don't particularly like, there's always something grounding about them. Our theories, on the other hand, our speculations and projections are not so easy to ground into. They flit and change as the future unfolds and as more information becomes available. They are our best guesses, our stories and poems and art that we try to use to understand life. There is no problem so long as we don't think our theories should be something solid we can stand on. Like the famous Bible verse says, we must build a home upon the rock and not on the sand. The bliss of unknowing is the freedom we feel when we stop making the unknown a problem and start seeing it as the source of art, surprise, mystery, and creativity. We need to recondition our relationship with the unknown. It's said, you may have heard this before, familiarity breeds contempt. Have you heard this? Let me look at my little gallery. Familiarity breeds contempt. But the advertisers and the propagandists in the world know that the opposite is true. Familiarity brings trust. Familiarity brings trust. Your brain is wired up to look for what is familiar. If we can present an idea to you enough times, it feels trustable. The unfamiliar is threatening. We're wired up for snap judgments, but quick judgments are also sloppy. To thrive in these times of great and rapid change, we need a friendly relationship with nuance and complexity. And that means we must be comfortable with unknowing. I've got a few points to share with you about this to see if we can train ourselves in it. The first point, gut checks are easy, but faulty. Gut checks. Have you heard of this? Have you heard of a gut check? This means, oh, there's so much data about, what a pandemic really is and vaccine effectiveness and stuff. I can't parse all that data. I'll do a gut check. What does my intuition tell me? Gut checks are easy, but faulty. Where does a gut check come from? Well, for 55 million years of primate history, that's just primates. 55 million years just of primates. Evolution has been selecting for effective snap judgments. For only a couple 100,000 have we been developing the higher cognitive faculties of Homo sapiens. The highest primate, as far as we know, so they told me in my 4th grade science book. And for only 50,000 of those 200-odd thousand years have we been using language. So 55 million, okay, these hand motions will not be to scale, but 55 million years, 200,000, 50,000. That's where our societies come from that we live in today. So there's a lot of architecture built for snap judgments and a little bit of a paste on top that's about nuance and complexity. We've built our human societies with the newest parts of our brain. These are societies that require advanced emotional intelligence, extrapolation from incomplete data, adopting multiple viewpoints simultaneously, and all the advanced skills you can only pull off with a functional neocortex, the little paste on top, functional neocortex. The momentum, though, of our evolution, the primary architecture, the bulk of the architecture in our brain is weighted toward hasty thinking rather than comfort amidst nuance. The momentum of our evolution is weighted toward hasty thinking rather than comfort amidst nuance. We do a gut check because we need to know now. We need to know what it is and what do I do about it, and I need to know yesterday. But while human intuition is a powerful force, putting together data that we've not even registered consciously and faster than the speed of thought, We also overlay our cognitive filters, biases, and recreations of the past faster than the speed of thought. Let me read that again because I was super inspired by this line. Although human intuition is a powerful force, putting together data that we're not even registering consciously and faster than the speed of thought, we also overlay cognitive filters, biases, and recreations of the past faster than the speed of thought. When we're comfortable with the unknown, we can use our primate gut check ability sparingly and appropriately, because we no longer need to default to our hair trigger conclusion jumping just to feel safe from our own unknowing. Point 1, gut checks, easy, fallible. Point number 2, I have seen the future and it is curious. I have seen the future and it is curious. Now you may know curious has two different ways it can mean. It could be like, you're a curious little type of person, aren't you? And that means you're weird. But it also means to be inquisitive, and you're a curious type of person, aren't you? And it means you want to know about stuff. I think the future is both kinds of curious. The point in here is that we have to learn to use our brain properly. We have to learn to use our brain properly. Now, a couple days ago, I was about to write a blog where I was going to say, we need to learn to use our brain properly. And I was going to say in that, like, we could be using our brain for nuance, and taking perspectives and empathy and all this stuff. And then I realized something I learned from reading Dan Gilbert's Stumbling Upon Happiness, I think is the title of it, where he says, your brain isn't actually made for those things. Your brain prioritizes for you to survive, not for you to be happy. Your brain's priority is not your happiness, it is your survival. And so if we talk about using our brain properly, the brain, the majority of that primate architecture thinks it's doing its job. It thinks it's working just fine. We're keeping you alive. And how does it do that? It tries to diminish nuance. It tries to get rid of unknowing, and the unknown whenever possible. It tries to make the world as familiar as possible. And then when the world is unfamiliar, it goes to a quick gut check. Unfortunately, the world we live in now, not only is that not the happiest way we could use our brain, but it's the least adaptive to our current society. It's very adapted to 55 million years ago, and maybe even 200,000 years ago, and possibly even 50,000 years ago, but it's not well adapted to 2021. We've got to learn to use our brain properly. We got to learn to use our brains in a new way, So we're using our brain just as it's made. It's made primarily to survive, but we have to train it to be happy or adaptable. Our genetic inheritance is wired up for snap judgments, and we have to train it to enjoy not knowing. If we want to use our brain, if we want to advance into the curious future, we need to train our brains in the art and science of not knowing. Enter meditation. One thing that's really neat, the techniques of the world's great contemplatives, I think that they are all about training our brain's higher faculties. So this is my latest theory. You'll see, maybe I'll write a dissertation on it someday or something, get like Academy famous or something, which is not as big as TikTok famous, but we can all dream. So what I think is if you strip away the religious trappings and the magical thinking in the deep mystical traditions of all the world's religions, they're training you how to use the newest, highest, most advanced functions of the human brain. That's what they're all working on. They're these mystics, Sufi mystics and Kabbalist mystics and Buddhist mystics. I'm partial to those ones, I'm sorry to say. They were all having these peak experiences, and they came out and they were like, you guys, what if we learned to love each other? I mean, I was in the cave and I had this thought. I was like, what if we just loved unconditionally? I don't know, call me crazy, but check it out. If we watch our breath for a couple more hours, I think it's possible. And then, you overlay all kinds of ritual offerings and stuff, but I think this is really what these traditions are all about. So it's all about our stepping into our human potential. And I don't just mean the mythic human potential that the New Age authors I used to love to read told me all about as my human potential, but the potential we've seen in good research, just most of us haven't stepped into our inheritance of yet. This is human potential. Like, you can see it on a PET scan and an fMRI. We just aren't using it yet. Wow. The evidence is all over the place. When we invoke our capacities for unknowing, our brains actually work better and we're happier. You can look this up in terms of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. When you train a kid to think of things as nouns, and I'm a noun and things are this way, they don't advance as far in their mathematics classes as you do when you train a kid to think, I could be anything, and this could be anything, and what in the heck is anything? And we stay curious instead of fixating on our knowledge, which kind of makes our brains a little lazy. What else? The fact that we are wired for empathy. It's not easy. Your brain is made to survive. That can lead to some non-empathic stuff. But the thing is, your stress hormones decrease when you are empathic. If you want better cardiovascular health, if you want to stave off cognitive decline, cultivate compassion and empathy, and your whole physiology is optimized. You know what empathy requires? I'm talking really fast because my time is almost up, but you know what empathy requires? It's not just a minister sermon technique, why I'm talking so fast, but I am excited. Empathy requires that you adopt the perspective of another rather than being fixed in one perspective. Oh, I know what they're feeling. I know what this is. You have to be curious. The capacity for curiosity primes and optimizes our human bodies and brains. And guess what? It's where all the advancements in human society came from. Darwin himself even alluded to the fact that it wasn't only survival of the fittest, but in Homo sapiens development, it's survival of the kindest. Woo! Okay, what else? Oh, and then just one last one, just for fun. There's a lot of research coming out on some of these psychiatric medications that too many hippies were taking them, and so they took them off the list. But the research has been coming back in things like psilocybin, ketamine, iboga. Don't go and take this stuff recreational. Some of it's really dangerous. But what the research shows is that, like, when they use a psychiatric drug, ketamine, for example, it can wipe out your depression for a time. And the reason it seems to do that is it wipes out your ability to think according to your fixed patterns for a minute. It turns off the default mode network in your brain, and you stop reinforcing all of your assumptions about life that kept you depressed. How weird is that? Well, one other thing that's neat and weird is that if you take enough walks in the woods, apparently it does a very similar thing to your brain. One of the reasons why spending time in nature is so healing is it turns off our necessity of fixating life into pre-sorted patterns and boxes that makes us unhappy. So, ignorance isn't necessarily bliss, but unknowing is. And by unknowing, perhaps we could say curiosity. Perhaps we could say curiosity. So how do we train it? Well, the good news is there's wisdom from the mystic masters. I'm an inheritor of a Zen tradition, and their whole, they say, oh, you want your meditation for the next 50 years? Yeah. Okay, sit down in a proper posture and think to yourself, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And it's a koan. It's like these koans. You could come up with all of, well, I'm the minister. I'm the settled minister of the Unitarian Universe. Okay, nice, but who are you? Well, you know, I'm a citizen of the planet. I'm a cosmopolitan. That's who I am. Okay, but who are you? And the point, how you pass your koan, don't tell Roshi I told you. The secret is it's not about the answer. It's about getting okay with being curious. Getting okay with being curious. If you work long enough on who am I, then they'll graduate to what is this? And then you go, it's a pen, and Roshi whacks you with the pen. No, if you tell me it's a pen, I'll hit you with the pen. If you tell me it's not a pen, I'll hit you with the... Zen guys are mean sometimes. But the whole point is to get you in this space of unknowing, to catalyze you into this space of unknowing. There's a famous, not middle, I keep wanting to say Middle Eastern, medieval Christian meditation text called The Cloud of Unknowing, who says the gateway to direct experience of the divine is to get into our doubt, that curious open space. Unless you create that much openness, the divine has no room to come in. In medieval Christianity, sometimes they called this the via negativa, the way of unning, I might say. Any thought that comes up, nope, that's not it. And we're just making space, 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 more curiosity. It's not about a nihilistic way of being. Great doubt in the Zen tradition, or in the Vajrayana Buddhist tradition, they have the whirling drill of doubt. And you hear this and you're like, that doesn't sound very beautiful. It's not about a nihilistic or anxious way. When I hear that, I get a little anxious. The whirling drill of doubt, don't I have enough? It's about humility and curiosity. Openness. Humility as the entrance to a state of openness, which is our higher human potential. Okay, the Zen term, great doubt, the Tibetan whirling diamond drill of doubt, the Christian cloud of unknowing don't sound all that romantic to me, but living a poetic life, that one sounds good. And what makes life poetic is the underlying mystery. The conclusion. The tendency to seek fixed and simple answers to life questions is out of phase with what the real answers look like. Nowadays, real answers involve complex understandings, and they're likely to change as soon as the circumstances change. It's easy for us to do a gut check and see how a possible solution feels. It's much harder to open ourselves up enough to get the complete picture. The practices of the world's contemplatives are not about checking out and entering a different realm where there's pie in the sky all the time. They're about learning our own future, our human future, where the high road capacities of our brains are the new normal, rather than the known, which exists all in the past. If we long to go boldly where no one has gone before, it means we must learn the bliss of unknowing, admitting we don't have all the answers and embarking on the great adventure.